Hey there, quirky folks! I'm your host Anna, and today we'll be looking at all the variants of Kang that have been introduced so far. Kang was first teased back in Avengers Endgame, but then Loki finally brought in Jonathan Majors to play one of the most important Kang variants. After that, we've now got at least 5 more variants through Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Before we look at all of them, it would be amazing if you guys would hit those like and subscribe buttons. With that out of the way, let's begin with the first Kang variant, He Who Remains.
Many names by many people. A ruler, a conqueror, he who remains, a jerk.
As many of you must be aware, MCU's version of He Who Remains is very different from the comics. Over there, He Who Remains was an entirely separate character, and the version of Kang that was employed by the Timekeepers was called Immortus. But instead of him, the MCU used another Kang variant and turned him into He Who Remains. He created the TVA and started the hoax of the Timekeepers. Initially, we presumed that they turned Immortus into He Who Remains. But that's not the case because the real Immortus also began to exist after Loki Season 1. Other Kang variants might have strong suits of armor right now, but we reckon that He Who Remains would also have had a similar suit in his prime days as a warrior. So if he were to fight a younger Kang variant, then he might actually win because of the eternity of experiences that he carries. You have to agree that he was the most powerful Kang variant because he had already won against all Kangs in the past. He had literally conquered everything and had everyone's lives in his control. But then he began to preserve the multiverse and never used his powers to destroy all of the universes. But despite all that he possessed, I would still say that the up-and-coming Kangs will prove to be more dangerous. He Who Remains knew that a war between his variants could destroy the entire multiverse. So, he created a sacred timeline to prevent that war.
Once I isolated our timeline, all I have to do is manage the flow of time and prevent any further branches. Hence, the TVA.
And in that sacred timeline, he prevented the existence of all his variants. But since he got bored of doing that, he lured Sylvie into killing him. And as soon as that happened, millions of branches began to split from the sacred timeline. And that further led to millions of Kangs to come into existence. And they formed the Council of Kangs, which banished one particular Kang variant, who was none other than Quantumania's Kang. Before we move on, I want to issue a spoiler warning. Be sure to watch Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, because I will talk about some heavy spoilers regarding Kang. This version of Kang actually broke time. In his lust to conquer, he destroyed countless timelines and killed trillions. He was proving to be the most dangerous Kang variant. So being terrified of him, the council members sabotaged his ship and exiled him to Quantum Realm's inner universe, which exists outside of time and space. His ship lost its power core, but he was lucky to come across Janet Van Dyne within the Quantum Realm. She helped him fix the power core, but she also found out about his ruthless acts of the past. So, she took his power core away and trapped him within the Quantum Realm forever. But by this time, he had already got his suit back. The tech on his suit was centuries ahead of anything the present-day Avengers possesses. So his armor gives him the power of telekinesis that's as strong as Jean Grey or Wanda. He can fire energy blasts that are as powerful as Captain Marvel. And he could come up with force fields to protect against incoming attacks. So trapped in the Quantum Realm with his advanced suit, he did what he always did best. He conquered civilizations and built his empire. He became the true conqueror, and his strong empire could have been the key to destroy the Council of Kangs. Having the telekinesis ability, a faceless army, and an empire to run, he practically became Darth Vader, who also had an army of stormtroopers. But unfortunately for him, Scott, Hope, and a bunch of smart ants destroyed his suit and managed to kill him, and his death alerted the Council of Kangs that showed up in Quantumania's mid-credit scene. This council includes Pharaoh Rama-Tut. Back when He Who Remains showed up in Loki, he mentioned that he was also a ruler, and that was a direct reference to Rama-Tut. In the comics, this version of Kang went back in time and ended up in ancient Egypt. Here he conquered the kingdom and ruled over it for 10 years. Meanwhile, he also groomed Ansa-Banur, the first mutant who came to be called Apocalypse. But now, the MCU has introduced a separate variant of Rama-Tut after the demise of He Who Remains. The next variant introduced in the scene is the Scarlet Centurion. This version of Kang met with Doctor Doom in the books, and he designed a new armor to become the Scarlet Centurion. He actually made the Avengers fight an alternate reality version of themselves. And even over there, his look seems pretty fancy and modernized. But besides him, the main big bad is Immortus. He seems to be the Kang Prime amidst these three. We initially thought that the MCU took Immortus and turned him into He Who Remains, who was a separate character in the comics. But apparently, they just took another Kang variant and started calling him He Who Remains to give him control over the TVA. And now that he is dead, the true Immortus has arrived. As Ant-Man 3's mid-credits scene begins, we hear Immortus, Rama Tut, and Scarlet Centurion talk about the death of Kang from Quantumania. They call him the Exiled One, because he was the one trapped in the quantum realm. And with his demise, the Council of Kangs becomes more alert. They show us the separate branches they've allowed to be created in the multiverse. And then Immortus calls in every Kang variant in the multiverse to discuss about the precautionary measures they need to take against the Avengers, who are slowly beginning to invade the multiversal boundaries. Just as they enter the gladiatorial pit of Kangs, we see thousands of them from all across the multiverse recreating the infamous comic book panel of Kangs. And with this, the scene comes to an end. After the demise of He Who Remains, other Kang variants like Immortus, Rama Tut, and the Scarlet Centurion took control of the multiverse. Now they are ready for a massive Kang bang to take down whoever comes in their way. They will lead an army of all Kang variants of the multiverse in Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. But apart from them, there's also a sixth Kang variant that was introduced in Quantumania's post-credit scene, who is Victor Timely. Quantumania actually plays out a scene of Loki Season 2, which might be shown from a different angle or perspective later this year. This scene takes place in the early 1900s era and introduces Victor Timely, who is yet another Kang variant. Sporting a mustache, he appears on stage to make a presentation about controlling time. In the comics, Nathaniel Richards, aka Kang, decides to go back to the year 1901. In this era, he became a brilliant industrialist and inventor and created his own town of Timely, Wisconsin. He became its first mayor, and as a leader in the industry, he transformed the city into a technological marvel. But the city was only a front, as it became a base for his future and past conquests. So it'll be interesting to see how this scene plays out in Loki Season 2. Towards the end of Season 1, we saw that the TVA was allowing the branches to grow under the leadership of a new Kang variant. Now, this Kang variant could either be Victor Timely himself, or it could be one of the three leading members of the Council of Kangs, which includes Pharaoh Rama Tut, Scarlet Centurion, and Immortus. Or maybe another strong variant of Kang like the Exiled One in Ant-Man 3 could also be in charge of the TVA. After all, there is no shortage of Kang variants in the Council of Kangs. Besides these 6 variants, there's also a young Kang variant who becomes Iron Lad and fights alongside the Avengers. He could show up in the future Young Avengers series, but we'll have to wait and see about that. Till then, tell us which of these Kang variants did you find the most dangerous till now. And once again, don't forget to click on those like and subscribe buttons. Goodbye, and I'll see you in the next one.